Heinrich Himmler, the Reichsführer SS, second man after Hitler and responsible for the organization of exterminating the European Jews and killing millions of Russians and East Europeans, was my great-uncle. His younger brother Ernst was my grandfather. Both of them died in 1945, so many years before I was born in 1967. I always knew about this notorious relative, as my father told me already in my early childhood. I have been aware of carrying a familiar burden as long as I can think. I have been provided with books about the Nazi time and have been educated to tolerance and civil courage. My parents always have been engaged for political refugees and for other discriminated or underprivileged people. Later, I studied political science and started myself to engage against racism and anti-Semitism. The National Socialistic era and its heritage has always been a key topic for me and my family. But I was growing up with the conviction that only Heinrich Himmler was the black sheep of a very respectable and high-educated bourgeois family. For many years, I believed that his parents and his brothers would have been skeptical towards the Nazi movement. The parents, because they were Catholic, conservative Bavarians, and the brothers, because they were engineers with less political than technical interest. Unfortunately, the reality was different. Years ago, my father asked me to do a research in the Federal Archives in Berlin about his father. While he just wanted to have confirmed if his father was a member of the Nazi Party or not, for myself, it was the beginning of a long familiar research. On the one side, my curiosity as a scientist made me going deeper and deeper in it. On the other side, I had very personal reasons for doing so, as in the meantime, I had become mother of a son, and I wanted to be able to tell him more about his family whenever he would start to ask than my father ever could do. This was necessary above all because the ancestors of my child are not only perpetrators from my side, but survivors of the Holocaust from the side of his father's family. In the next years, I was discovering that all the Himmler family had been supporting the Nazi regime. This was shocking enough, but it was even more shocking for me to realize that I had never thought about this possibility so far, despite my political and historical awareness. At the beginning of my research, I was mostly interested in the relationship between Heinrich Himmler and my grandfather. And of course, I wanted to know how it could happen that a normal little boy coming from such a normal family developed into the monstrous Heinrich Himmler, the notorious mass murderer. Why, if all the family was believing in the same Nazi ideology, only Heinrich was becoming the man he was, and not one of his brothers? How big was the influence of education and of the historical and social situation in which they were grown up? The three brothers, Gebhard, Heinrich and Ernst Himmler, grew up in Bavaria at the beginning of the 20th century, in an honorable middle-class family, with their father being a school teacher for Latin and Greek, and having good contacts to the Bavarian monarchy. The parents tried their best to support the boys in every way. Any sacrifice is worth making for a good and all-round education for the children, my great-grandfather emphasized. His supreme ideals were the typical bourgeois virtues before the World War I: devotion to duty, pure morals, and obedience. And it was important for him to have his sons grow up to be German-minded men. The relations between parents and children were warm-hearted, but the older the children became, however, the more the expectations and demands for discipline by their parents have been attached to their affection. And the three brothers clearly made great efforts to satisfy them. being outstanding pupils throughout their school careers, displaying that exemplary discipline their father, both as a teacher and later as a headmaster, demanded with kindly strictness of his pupils.